Whistler's Gambit: The Rise of the Vampire. King the year was 1998, and the streets of New York City were drenched in blood, both human and vampire. Blade, the Daywalker, had been waging his one-man war against the vampire coven, leaving a trail of ash and destruction in his wake. But in this alternate timeline, Abraham Whistler, Blade's mentor and weaponsmith, had survived the events that once claimed his life. And Whistler had a plan, one that would change the balance of power forever. Whistler's survival. After narrowly escaping death at the hands of Deacon Frost's minions, Whistler didn't just recover, he evolved. He realized that brute force alone wouldn't win the war against the vampires. Instead, he began to study them, learning their weaknesses, their hierarchies, and their secrets. He discovered that vampires were not just monsters. They were a society, one that could be manipulated from within. Using his knowledge of vampire lore and his unparalleled combat skills, Whistler infiltrated the New York coven. He posed as a rogue hunter turned traitor, offering his services to the vampires in exchange for power. The coven, desperate after Blade's relentless attacks, saw Whistler as a valuable asset. Little did they know, he was playing the long game. The trap for Blade Whistler knew that Blade was both his greatest ally and his greatest threat. The Daywalker's single-minded focus on destroying vampires made him unpredictable, and Whistler couldn't risk Blade interfering with his plans. So, he devised a trap, a masterpiece of deception and cunning. He lured Blade to an abandoned subway station under the guise of a vampire ambush. When Blade arrived, he found not a horde of vampires, but Whistler himself. The two fought, their bond of trust shattered by Whistler's betrayal. But Whistler had planned for this. Using a combination of silver-laced nets, UV grenades, and a modified version of Blade's own weapons, he subdued the Daywalker. "You taught me well, Blade," Whistler said as he chained his former protege to the bedrock deep beneath the city. "But even you can't fight forever." The imprisonment of Dracula. Whistler's ambitions didn't stop with Blade. He had discovered an ancient secret buried beneath New York, a tomb containing none other than Count Dracula, the original vampire. Dracula had been imprisoned centuries ago, his power too great even for his own kind. Using his knowledge of vampire magic and technology, Whistler reforged the seals that bound Dracula, ensuring the ancient vampire would remain trapped. But he didn't stop there. He placed Blade's prison next to Dracula's, a cruel irony that the Daywalker would spend eternity alongside the very creature he had sworn to destroy. Whistler's ascension, with Blade and Dracula out of the way, Whistler consolidated his power. He used his intellect, combat skills, and deep understanding of vampire weaknesses to outmaneuver his rivals. One by one, he eliminated the coven's leaders, until only he remained. The vampires, desperate for a strong leader, had no choice but to accept Whistler as their king. He ruled with an iron fist, using his knowledge of vampire weaknesses to keep them in line. Under his leadership, the New York coven became more organized, more ruthless, and more dangerous than ever before. The final twist. As Whistler sat on his throne, surrounded by the creatures he once hunted, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He had achieved what no human ever had. He had conquered the vampires from within. But at what cost? In the depths of the city, Blade and Dracula remained imprisoned, their hatred for each other matched only by their hatred for Whistler. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, whispers began to spread of a new threat, one that even Whistler might not be able to control.